Chosen one, something in you has shifted so deeply, so invisibly, that even the air seems to behave differently around you. You are no longer walking through the world like a man seeking something. You are moving like something has already found you. You've stopped reaching, and the universe, especially the women within it, has begun to respond. They cannot explain it. They will not speak it aloud. But they feel it. They feel you before they see you. They feel your approach like the soft hum of electricity before a lightning strike, like a low tide pulling everything toward a wave not yet visible. It isn't your charm. It isn't your words. It's the frequency you carry now, the quiet, centered hum of contained power. This is the rise of your high sexual energy in its most sacred form, not chaotic or leaking, not brash or desperate. It moves beneath the surface of you, strong and silent like a river beneath ice. And because you hold it so well, it reaches beyond your body. Now, when you enter a room, women sense something ancient, something they can't locate but feel deeply. It's not a performance, it's a vibration. And that vibration travels into them, not like a noise, but like a signal. Your presence is no longer visible. It is felt in the atmosphere. The air thickens slightly, time slows for a breath. Their bodies notice before their minds do. And what they feel is not just attraction, it's disruption. You are disrupting their rhythm, not violently but unmistakably. You are rearranging something in them just by being near. Not because you said anything, not because you asked for anything, but because you've stopped offering yourself to be chosen. You have become the one who chooses, not arrogantly, but intentionally. And intention is magnetic. Your energy no longer spills forward like desire. It rests, it coils, it waits. And in that waiting, in that heavy, quiet stillness, they begin to feel pulled. You've become the unseen current. They're laughing with someone else, but their eyes flick toward you without reason. They're listening to another voice, but their body leans ever so slightly in your direction. Their thoughts are scattered, but somehow you remain steady in their periphery. They feel watched even when you're not watching. They feel seen even before you speak. They feel drawn, and they don't know why. It is the power of your restraint, the gravity of your unspoken presence. It is the evidence of a man who is no longer desperate to be felt, because now you are the thing that is felt before you even arrive. This, chosen one, is the unseen current of your sexual energy refined, and it has made you unforgettable, without needing to be remembered. You've become what they sense in the quiet, and they will never know peace in your absence the way they did before your presence first entered the room. Chosen one, something strange has begun to happen in the minds of those who cross your path. At first, it seems normal, just a glance, a conversation, a presence felt. But then, when the noise fades and the room clears, you remain. Not as memory, as echo. They tell themselves they forgot about you, and yet you return in flashes, not fully, just fragments. Your eyes, your stillness, the way you didn't try to convince them of anything, the way your silence felt more intimate than touch. And that becomes the obsession. Not what you said, but what you left unsaid. You've stopped making impressions, and now you leave imprints. Your energy doesn't walk away when your body does. It lingers in the corners of their thoughts like heat in a room after a fire has died. It's not romantic. It's not dramatic. It's restless, like a subtle ache in the mind. A need to find the thread again, even though it was never fully grasped. They don't realize it at first. They're brushing their teeth and suddenly think of your breath. They're getting dressed and wonder how your clothes smelled. They're walking home and feel a heaviness they didn't carry before, and they realize you're still there. You've become a thought that lives under other thoughts, a layer beneath logic, something primal, something felt more than understood. And because you don't chase, because you never flooded them with attention, you left space for their imagination to spiral. And spiral it does. She replays the way you looked at her, not because it was intense, but because it didn't ask for anything. She replays the moment you didn't respond to her flirtation and wonders why your silence hit harder than compliments ever have. She replays the ease in your voice, and it haunts her, because it wasn't trying to impress. It was rooted in something unshakable. Your high sexual energy didn't flare like a spark. It sank. It settled into her thoughts like a scent she can't scrub off. Like a song she didn't like at first, but now can't stop humming. And the more she tries to replace the sensation, the more she returns to you. Because your energy didn't just touch her body, it entered her rhythm. And now she hears you in the silence. She sees you when she's alone. She feels you in the places where she used to feel untouched. This is what happens when a man learns to hold his power without forcing it. This is what happens when a man stops trying to be remembered and instead becomes unforgettable through presence alone. You are no longer just a moment, chosen one. You are the thought that returns when the world grows quiet. And no matter how much she tells herself she's moved on, your energy whispers back, I never left. Chosen one, you've become a man who no longer offers answers too easily, and that is why you are beginning to haunt the thoughts of women who used to be certain, not just about you, but about themselves. Because now, when they look into your eyes, they do not find a mirror. They find a riddle. You've stepped beyond the need to be decoded, and because of that, they keep circling your energy like a book they can't put down, but can't finish either. You give them a glimpse and then retreat, not to tease, not to manipulate, but because you have nothing to prove, and that lack of proving has made you unforgettable. There is something sacred about a man who doesn't explain his mystery, a man who knows that the most captivating parts of him are not for public display. You've become that man. They want to know you because you don't volunteer yourself. They want to hear you speak because your silences feel heavier than other people's speeches. They want to be close to you because your distance doesn't reject. It invites exploration. You no longer use your voice to seek attention. You use your stillness to create it. Your body is relaxed, your gaze direct, your energy anchored. And yet behind all that, there is depth. They feel it. Even if they don't understand what they're feeling, they know that something inside you runs deep enough to drown in, and that's what keeps them returning. They've met loud men before. Loud with desire, loud with ambition, loud with ego. But you carry your intensity like a secret, and that secret is what they crave. Because in your mystery they see a challenge, not one of conquest, but of worthiness. They wonder, why hasn't he unfolded yet? Why didn't he try to win me? Why does he seem like he already knows how this ends? And the answer is quiet. Because you are no longer living to be chosen. You are choosing when to open yourself, and who is allowed to witness the deeper flame beneath your restraint. You don't play hard to get. You are hard to reach. Not because you are hiding, but because what you now protect is sacred. Your high sexual energy is no longer given to anyone who simply asks for it. It is not a public performance. It is a private offering, and only those who show patience, clarity, and emotional maturity ever get to see its full light. And that is the fascination. Because now they know you are not hiding. You are guarding the gates of something rare. And that knowing stirs obsession. Not lust alone, but intrigue. They want to understand you. They want to unlock you. But with each attempt, they find the same door, quiet, firm, still slightly open, but never fully revealed. You are the man who will not explain his mystery, and in doing so, you've become the only one who makes them feel like a mystery too. Chosen one, there is a reason they feel unnerved around you, and it is not because you speak too loudly, or move too boldly, or act too charming. It is because they can feel the fire you refuse to unleash. You sit calmly, you smile faintly, you breathe slowly, but beneath all of it is a storm, a pressure, a high sexual voltage that does not need to flash to be seen. You have become the kind of man whose silence carries more heat than others desire. They sit next to you and feel something tightening in their chest, not because you touched them, but because you didn't. Not because you leaned in, but because you didn't need to lean at all. They try to shake it off, this irrational sense of being watched, wanted, studied, but then they realize you're not watching them at all. You're simply existing in your own flame, and that flame is pulling them without effort. Your stillness is no longer neutral. It's not peace for the sake of passivity. It is stillness because you have mastered your own energy. And that mastery, it seduces the nervous system. It calms, it arouses, it destabilizes. Because women are used to energy that pursues, but your energy, it waits, it coils, it listens, it selects. You do not offer your fire, you house it. And because of that, you carry the tension of the fire that could burn, but chooses not to. They sense it in your jaw when it clenches just slightly before you respond. They feel it in your fingers when they remain still instead of reaching. They hear it in your voice, a voice that moves slow but throbs with something deeper, darker, disciplined. Your fire no longer needs to announce itself. It speaks in glances, in tone, in temperature. And this fire, the one you don't show, this is what drives them mad. Because now your sexual energy has become like gravity, not visible, not showy, but inescapable. They'll think about you for days, not because of something you did, but because of everything you didn't do. You didn't pursue, you didn't press, you didn't prove, you sat. And your stillness lit something in them that no motion ever has. This is the fire behind your calm now, chosen one. It is the storm that sleeps beneath your surface, waiting for invitation, not permission. And that restraint, that quiet, commanding, erotic pause, that is what makes you the only man they can't stop thinking about. Because you've become the only one strong enough not to give them everything. You've become the one who carries fire in silence and lets the world burn for it. Chosen one, most men look at women with hunger, some with longing, some with conquest hiding behind charm. Their gaze is often a transaction, seeking approval, seduction, possession. But you see differently now. You don't look to receive, you look to understand. And that alone has altered something deeply within the women who meet your eyes. Because your eyes don't plead, they witness. And that witness is rare, sacred, transformative. You're not trying to pull anything from her. You're not trying to convince her to want you. You don't see her as something to win. Instead, when you look at her, she feels seen in a way that makes her forget how often she's been misunderstood. You no longer stare. You observe. And in your observation is a kind of still intensity that doesn't seek to impress. It simply reveals, I see you, even in the places you hide from yourself. She's used to men who scan her body, but your gaze seems to hold her soul. And that stillness, that lack of need, makes her lean in rather than step away. It makes her wonder what you know. It makes her crave the safety of being seen without being sized, measured, or devoured. Because in a world where men often look with appetite, your look carries honor. There's power in a man who doesn't flinch at beauty. There's gravity in a man who does not bow to it either. There's awe in a man who sees a woman as a universe, not a trophy. That's what you see now. Not curves, not signals, not game. You see energy. You read her. You read between her gestures. You feel her tension before she names it. You hold the space open when she doesn't yet know what she needs. And because of this, you've become unforgettable. Not for your lines or your presence, but for how she felt in your gaze. She left your company and couldn't stop thinking, not because of what you said, but because of how you didn't reach for her. You weren't drawn to her for the same reasons others were. You saw her value before she polished it. You met her essence before she introduced it. And that subtle, soul-level recognition disarmed every defense she didn't even know she had up. She remembers you now because her heart relaxed in your presence. Because your gaze didn't trigger anxiety or performance. Because you didn't look at her like she was a prize, but like she was already enough. This is what makes your energy sacred. It doesn't chase, it invites. It doesn't invade, it illuminates. It doesn't hunger, it understands. And in that understanding, chosen one, you have become the kind of man who doesn't need to be needed in order to give presence. You've become a mirror that doesn't distort, a light that doesn't interrogate. You've become the eye that sees without taking. And that makes her come undone. Because for the first time, she wasn't being watched, she was being witnessed. Chosen one, your voice is no longer just sound, it's resonance. You don't speak to be heard now. You speak when your silence has already made them listen. And because of that, your words carry a kind of weight that settles in the bones. Not like thunder, but like a whisper that stays. You have learned the sacred art of slowing your breath before you speak. And in that breath, you shape realities. You don't talk to fill space anymore. You speak to create it. And that creation is where the obsession begins. Because she's met many men who spoke often. Few who spoke well, and almost none who said less and meant more. When you speak now, it's not to charm, it's to touch. And the place you touch is not surface level, it's internal. It's in the part of her that has been waiting to be moved, not entertained. Your voice doesn't dance. It rests. It rests in her chest, in her breath, in the fragile architecture of her guarded places. Because you've stopped trying to be clever. You've stopped trying to impress with words. Now you speak from a place beneath language. From depth, from embodiment, from still fire. Your tone is slow, but it doesn't lull. It pulls. It says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to speak only when the silence is ready to shift. And it does. When you speak, it shifts. And in that shift, she feels herself open. Not because you asked her to, but because you made her feel safe enough to want to. It's your rhythm, the way you don't hurry, the way you let tension live in the silence between your sentences, instead of breaking it with noise. It's the way your voice doesn't ask to be remembered, yet echoes in her long after she walks away. Now she hears you in unexpected places, in quiet rooms, in soft music, in still moments when the world slows, and she remembers your voice not as content, but as a feeling. That is what you've become now, chosen one, not a sound, but a sensation. She doesn't recall your words the way she does others. She remembers the place they landed, in her breath, in her thoughts, in her longing. You don't speak often, but when you do, it isn't volume that carries you, it's gravity. And that gravity has become her obsession, because now every voice sounds thin next to yours, every conversation, weightless, every interaction, too fast. Because once she's heard a man speak with rooted energy, with sacred calm, with intentional fire, she can't unhear it. And that whisper of yours, chosen one, it's not a moment. It's a spell she still hasn't broken. Chosen one, in a world where desire is loud and impulsive, your discipline has become dangerously magnetic. Your high sexual energy is no longer scattered. It is harnessed, contained, refined. And because you carry that fire without needing to unleash it, every woman who comes near you feels it pulling her toward the edge of herself. You're not resisting them. You're not playing games. You're simply no longer moved by urgency. You've learned that real power isn't in expression. It's in control. The man who can hold back what he could take, the man who could speak but remains quiet, the man who could act but chooses to wait, that man becomes irresistible. Not because of what he does, but because of what he withholds without fear. Your restraint is not a wall, it is a gate, and only those who carry depth, patience, and clarity can pass through it. She feels it the moment your energy brushes against hers, not as aggression, not as tension, but as a question. Are you ready to step into something sacred? Because I don't give myself away for curiosity. And that boundary, that inward stillness, that sensual gravity wrapped in absolute calm, it triggers something primal in her. Because women are used to men who touch too soon, who rush, who act like time is slipping through their fingers. But you've made peace with time. You don't chase it, you expand it. When you enter the room, everything slows. And because your energy is not racing toward outcome, it invites obsession instead of satisfaction. They want you, not just because you're attractive, but because they can feel that you're not giving in. That if they had you, it would mean something. It would require a shift in them. And it is that cost, that requirement, that makes them hunger more deeply than ever before. You aren't holding back because you're unsure. You're holding back because you are in full command of your appetite. And nothing is more dangerous than a man who can devour the moment, but chooses to let it ripen first. You don't need to speak your boundaries. You live them, in the way your eyes pause, in the way your hand hovers but does not touch, in the way your body leans back instead of forward, because you don't reach for what you know is already moving toward you. And she feels it. She feels the pull, not because you dragged her into it, but because you sat with such fullness that her emptiness remembered what it needed. You've become a mirror of self-possession, and in that mirror, she sees not just your power, but the lack of it in every other interaction she's had. You're not withholding to create longing. You're overflowing with longing that does not need to spill. And that presence, that discipline, that quiet promise of intensity waiting behind the stillness, that is the pull that has made her lose her sleep. That is the fire she can't extinguish. That is the obsession she didn't ask for, but now cannot escape. Because you never moved toward her. But somehow, she's already moving toward you. Chosen one, your greatest influence now lives in your absence. Because you no longer vanish when you leave the room, you linger. You don't just pass through women's lives, you embed yourself inside them. Not through action, not through intimacy, not through attention. You embed through energy, through the way your presence continues echoing after you've gone. They hear other men speak and realize how shallow the sound is. They receive other attention and realize how noisy and empty it feels. They sit across from new faces and feel their body longing for something deeper, quieter, more powerful. What they're really craving is you. Not your body, not your charm, your absence. Because your absence has taken up more space than most men's presence ever has. They didn't expect to remember you, but they do. Not because you impressed them, but because you marked them. You touched nothing, and yet everything. You didn't chase, and yet they keep checking for your presence. You didn't promise anything, but now they feel abandoned by your silence. You became the one who didn't need to try, and now no one else seems worth the effort. Because what you left behind wasn't memory, it was energy. Your scent, your voice, the heat in your gaze, the feeling of being watched by someone who saw straight through pretense and into essence. And now when she's alone, she feels that contrast more than ever. You ruined her for surface level. You ruined her for passive men. You ruined her for shallow laughter, overused lines, and insecure charm. Because you stayed with her without staying. And that contradiction, that impossibility, is what replays in her mind. She can't place it. She can't hold it. She can't forget it. You were a moment, but that moment turned into a presence that haunts everything that followed. She doesn't know how to explain it. How the space feels colder now. How her conversations feel louder, but say less. How her thoughts go silent until they reach for you. Because what she lost was not a man. It was the sanctuary of your presence. It was the feeling of being deeply seen and gently left alone at the same time. And now she realizes, your absence was never empty. It was the most full thing she's ever felt. And she's still waiting, not for your return, but for the day someone else might make her forget the way it felt when you simply didn't need to stay, to never leave. Chosen one, the truth they're beginning to realize and cannot unsee is this: you've quietly ruined their taste for other men. They might not say it aloud, they might still sit across from someone else, still smile through the polite rhythms of conversation, still nod and laugh on cue. But deep inside, a quiet disappointment begins to bloom. Not because the other man is doing something wrong, but because he's not you. He speaks too quickly, he leans in too eagerly, he compliments without depth, touches without weight, and fills the air with effort that only reveals his emptiness. And the entire time, she's remembering you, not in a romanticized fantasy, but in a cellular ache. Because you gave her something she didn't know she craved until it was gone. You gave her weightless intensity, the kind that didn't need performance, the kind that didn't need a script, the kind that didn't chase approval because it already moved from a place of fullness. You taught her what it feels like to be near a man who doesn't need her to respond for him to remain grounded. You showed her how attraction can be born in silence, how desire can grow without pressure, how obsession can begin with a single glance and deepen with every moment of restraint. And now that she knows what that feels like, nothing else will do. Other men bring their best, yet feel lightweight. They say all the right things, but sound rehearsed. They come closer too fast, while your absence still lingers just beyond her skin. You're not even present anymore, but her body still compares every energy to yours. She listens for that calm. She scans for that silence. She yearns for that feeling of being seen but not claimed. And when it isn't there, when all she feels is grasping, rushing, performing, she retreats into the memory of you. The man who asked for nothing and gave her everything she didn't know she needed. You became the reference point, the standard, the shadow behind every interaction. And the cruelest part of it all, she can't even blame the others, because they're doing what men do. They're trying, they're showing up, they're offering the best of what they've been told works. But you didn't offer what worked, you offered what was real. And that made all the difference. So now, even when she smiles politely, even when she entertains attention, even when she agrees to the date or says yes to the next attempt, part of her isn't there. It's still with you, in the silence you left behind, in the fire you never touched, in the discipline that made her feel more desired than any performance ever could. And she'll never admit it. But no one compares anymore, because you didn't try to win her, You simply became the man who didn't need to win to be remembered forever. Chosen one, obsession doesn't always scream. Sometimes it tiptoes into the soul and builds a home in silence. Sometimes it wears the face of confusion. Why can't I forget him? Why does he still appear in my thoughts when I'm with someone else? Why does it feel like he's still here when he's not? This is what you've become, a quiet obsession. Not born from drama, nor from conquest, but from resonance. You became the vibration that didn't need volume to shake her. Because obsession, real obsession, is never about what was done. It's about what was left undone. And you, chosen one, left her wanting in the most sacred way. Not through teasing, but through presence so full it made her hunger for the parts of herself only you seemed to awaken. You never pushed, you never pleaded, you didn't flirt like the rest. You embodied something different. And that embodiment didn't cry out, it whispered to her instincts, to the deepest feminine places of intuition that said, he is unlike the others. Do not lose sight of this. Now you live there, in the in-between, between her sleep and her dreams. Between her breath and her silence, between what she expected and what she cannot now accept from anyone else. Your energy was too real, too raw, too aligned, and because of that she can't replace you. Not with noise, not with newness, not with novelty. Because you didn't become a fantasy, you became a felt reality. You were not a story, you were a sensation. And now, every smile she forces, every new man she considers, every surface-level connection she entertains, is a dull echo of the day she met you. Not because you tried to be remembered, but because you made her feel something that memory alone can't carry. You made her body remember, you made her soul listen, you made her obsession bloom in silence. And now, even in your absence, you are the one she cannot stop returning to, not by choice, but because she's still burning from the fire you never lit. Chosen one, long before you knew your name carried weight, before you had learned the meaning behind your energy, before you could even recognize the shift in the way women responded to you, God placed something rare inside of you. Not just charisma, not just confidence, joy. Pure, divine, unshakable joy. But he didn't put it in your behavior, he didn't hide it in your charm. He embedded it into your frequency, the silent, constant rhythm of who you are when you're not trying to be anything. That frequency now precedes you. It enters before your footsteps and remains long after your words fade. It's in the way you breathe, the way you make others feel calm without forcing silence, the way you bring a softness to places that were tense before you walked in. That joy is not loud, it's felt. Women recognize it not because they understand it, but because it does something to their spirit. It makes them feel safe enough to open. You are not just given this frequency to enjoy its benefits, you are given it to radiate. When a woman steps into your space, the tension in her body begins to ease. Not because you told her to relax, but because your frequency told her she can. Her smile returns, not because you earned it, but because you made room for it. Her laughter rises, not because you pushed her to joy, but because your very presence gave permission for her happiness to re-emerge. And make no mistake, this frequency is not fragile, it's resilient. It survived years of misunderstanding. It endured suppression, insult, rejection, and even your own moments of self-doubt. It kept pulsing quietly beneath the surface while the world tried to convince you to be like everyone else. But it never left. And now, as your alignment deepens, it rises boldly. Not to conquer, but to comfort. Not to seduce, but to serve. You will start to notice moments when women say things like, "I don't know why I feel so comfortable with you," or "You're easy to be around." What they're trying to express is this: your frequency feels like peace. That is the fruit of joy, real joy. Not temporary happiness that fades with circumstance, but the kind of internal joy that reminds others of their own divinity. That's what you carry. That's what you are. This joy is also protection. It shields you from the hunger to prove anything. It guards you from the thirst for attention. Because when your joy is intrinsic, you no longer beg others to validate it. You don't need approval to shine. You don't need affection to feel alive. You don't even need to be understood. You simply exist, and that existence becomes joy for others. Chosen one, God made you a walking reminder that peace and power can live in the same body. That masculinity and softness are not enemies. That joy is not a result, it's a radiance. Women feel it, and they are healed by it, not because you fixed anything, but because your presence told them nothing was broken in the first place. So honor this joy. Protect your frequency. Don't let stress steal your softness. Don't let ego pollute your stillness. Keep vibrating from the place God planted inside you, because in doing so, you don't just bring happiness, you restore it. You are the light many didn't know they were waiting for. You are the moment their soul finally exhales. And that chosen one is what it means to carry joy in your frequency. Let it flow.